everyone. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure. We are a weekly podcast dedicated to sincere, in-depth investigations into the paranormal, supernatural, and the metaphysical, with a special focus on the UFO topic. We take a sincere, analytical approach, thoroughly evaluating each case and its implications. Our discussions go beyond the surface as we engage with researchers, investigators, and experiencers to explore the deeper layers of their testimonies. We strive for high-resolution analysis, carefully examining evidence, patterns, and perspectives that challenge conventional thinking. If you're looking for a podcast that seeks deeper understanding, you're in the right place. Please be sure to like and subscribe and follow to receive notifications when new content is made available. You can also visit us at www.paranomalypodcast.com for more content and information, including all our social links. Thank you again for watching or listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode of Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure. Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in tonight in this live with Geraldine. Say your last name one more time. Orozco, correct?
Oh, you're muted, Geraldine.
Muted. Orozco. You said it perfectly.
Oh, right. Okay. I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Geraldine's experienced a life-altering, conscious, interdimensional contact event that awakened profound psychic abilities and led her to uncover the multidimensional blueprint of the human body and soul. She now dedicates her life to exploring hybridization programs, soul memory, and the morphogenic architecture of humanity. Geraldine, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, Jim and Todd.
All right, Jim, you want to go ahead with your question there?
So yeah, let's start with the 2013, or do you want to go back maybe to the 2008 where you kind of started to, I think, have a spiritual awakening at that point?
Jim, how about we do this? How about we do this? Let me ask a question, Geraldine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Since you was little, how did you get your psychic abilities? Did your abilities come from contact with aliens, or was this something supernatural that you have got this gift somehow? How do you believe you got it?
Well, you see, I've had psychic capacity since I was very young. I've had visions of many different things. I had visions of lights entering my room. I also had a lot of visions of ghosts. So I could see ghosts. I could connect with them and communicate them when I was playing as a child. But, of course, growing up, I didn't understand what psychic abilities really was. I just thought it was something normal. But it wasn't until 2013, after my contact experience, that those abilities just completely ripped wide open into a complete ability to connect and even hear and see people beyond walls. My level of sensitivity was just heightened. I can sense people's thoughts, feelings. I could see their body. I could see illness in their body, how energy would get stuck in their body, all kinds of things.
Wow.
It was a whole different level. Yes.
So yeah, typically there are, well, maybe not typically, but it is noted in the literature, an abductee having an increase or just the sudden appearance of psychic abilities, post-abduction. But this kind of seems more on the higher end of that, more to the extreme,
Yes.
end of the spectrum, so you're saying, just to hone in on that one detail, you were able to see people not in the room with you, like in another room, actually see, like, not their energy, but actually see them?
It was almost as if what we think of this physical construct just completely dissolving, and my abilities became heightened to kind of sensing electromagnetic fields from of organic humans, and I could differentiate the difference between an organic multidimensional field and an animal and a plant and a wall. It was very different variation of frequency. So I could hear the conversations of my neighbors 3 houses down from my house in their kitchen. I could see right through. I don't know how to explain it, but it's like remote viewing, but essentially tune into that just without trying, just
Without trying, and not even setting your focus or attention on the neighbors or anything, and that just suddenly appearing in consciousness.
exactly.
That's interesting. And you knew, because it was a conscious experience, you knew that it wasn't unexplained. You knew it must have had something to do with the profound, experience that you just had.
Yeah, actually, in fact, if it wasn't for that ability, I think myself, I wouldn't even believe what had happened to me because it was such a shocking experience.
Mm-hmm.
To the point where I was calling the hospital and the police like as soon as 6:15 in the morning, trying to make sense of what just had happened to me, not really understanding where those children were, where they came from. I mean, I just didn't understand. And, it took 24 hours to kind of process what was happening. And it wasn't until I was in front of other people that I saw these abilities and I realized, oh my gosh, this is not just a dream or a vivid imagination.
Mm-hmm.
This is something serious. And it affected my life for 3 months. I wasn't able to leave my house after that experience.
And the other thing that is unusual is your abilities continue to this day. The full extent, the full breadth of those abilities continue to this day.
Yes, but I've learned how to really control them, right? Because at first it was just kind of like everything and everyone was just included in that.
Right. So the experience is not quite the same as it was when you suddenly found yourself with those abilities, but you still.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing that's different. Oftentimes you hear from abductees that they have the abilities post abduction, and then they kind of wane, and then maybe return again when there's another abduction. So that's interesting. Well, let's go to the 2013 experience. So this was a full conscious experience, and you have memory. You don't think there's any missing gaps. It's full conscious memory from beginning to end.
Full conscious memory. I also want to mention that, I essentially learned how to cultivate life force as a result of that ability. And so I spent many years after 2013, learning how to master the ability to use that with, abiding by universal laws of free will and doing that. So it was having to refine that ability. That was kind of a challenge. But yes, going back to 2013. In 2013, I had taken about 4 or 5 months I went into retreat, just a self-made retreat, because, I had been going through tumultuous last 5-6 years. My partner had passed away. I had just started a business. It was so hard for the business, and I just needed to answer some profound questions that kept coming up in my life. And I went into meditation, and I went so deep into that meditation that some days I was meditating 9 hours a day without even getting up at all, not even to use the restroom. And I began to kind of uncover and go into the depths of my subconscious mind. I began to enter into the history of my family, ancestral memory, going back to their origins. And that's when I began to ask questions about the construct of the matrix, beginning to see some patterns down my ancestral lineage within myself that I was trying to answer. And that's where it led me down the rabbit hole in my own work of understanding what's behind the veil of this construct that we call life. Who created that? Who built that? Who designed that in the way that we live as humans? And in October of 2013, that's when I had this incredible. I went to bed at like 10 something at night, and around 3:33. Well, actually, exactly at 3:33 in the morning, I opened my eyes, and my room is filled with this white light, even though my blinds are closed. You want me to just jump into the story?
And go through it, methodically in full detail. Give us the full detail of, if you could even do it moment by moment,
Yeah.
what
Okay.
you're sensing, what you're feeling, what your emotions were. Yeah, just give us everything and go as slow as you want. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so at first, I was sleeping and I meditate before I go to sleep. So I my eyes were closed, and all of a sudden, when the light is shining directly at your eyeballs, it turns red, right? And you can kind of
Mhm.
see through. So that's what happened. And it was so
Mm.
bright that I climb out of bed, and I'm thinking, gosh, what is this white light? I thought maybe somebody was trying to, some strange car with a really bright light was in our street. I used to live in a curved street. So the car would have to be on the other side of the street shining directly at my window in order for that to happen. So I waited and waited, and I was listening, but I couldn't hear anything. I look down at my phone and it's 3:33, and I walk over to the window and I start to feel this incredible, powerful vibration feeling. Like it felt like
Mhm.
the engine of a airplane or something. It was a rumbling
Yeah.
sensation.
And in hindsight, that was probably the paralysis setting in. Typically, that's how abductees, right, describe it. At first it's a vibration, that you're sensing. Or what do you think that was? Uh,
Well, yes, it could be. It could be that it's a paralysis, but I feel that it was this light, this vessel that was outside of my
the light
breath.
itself was producing the vibrating effect.
Exactly, because
Mhm.
I touched the wall, I touched the windows, and everything was vibrating. I'm feeling it with my hands. and and then at that point, when I looked through the blinds to try to see beyond the light, it was so bright that I couldn't even see beyond it, and I'm squinting and trying to see. And I'll from one moment to the next, as I'm trying to look at the tree across the street from me, my body then starts to paralyze, and I am feeling myself being pulled through the wall. I can feel the cells in my body, and I could hear, it's a very strange feeling, like things are stretching and moving apart, as if I'm dissolving through the wall
Mm.
and appearing on the other side. And as I'm on the other side, I'm on top of the garage of my house, and there's this gigantic light that it's an oscillating of pinks, purples, iridescent colors. It's like a metallic plasma material. That's the only way I could explain it. And as I'm standing there, I'm looking around. It almost felt as if we were in a bubble in which time stood still. There was not a single wind. I mean, everything was still, still. There wasn't a cat, and we have lots of cats around. There's no cat, there's no animal, no car, no sounds, just absolute silence, other than this vibration, this powerful vibration of this
Mm.
vessel.
Okay, so brief sidebar, real quick then. So
Mhm.
I just have to ask you about this because this is something that we're hearing again and again. This sort of noticing when you're being taken by the beam, or after you come through the window, or whatever. So you did move through a solid surface, the window, or
Yeah. Yes.
and you
Window and wall.
and then you don't notice. So the thing that I'm wondering is, because we never, hardly ever, except for maybe in the case of maybe like Linda Napolitano, there's never a bystander, or very, very rarely, that sees the craft, with the beam taking the person. Are you already, do you think, uh, in a slightly different frequency of reality at that point that you move? By virtue of moving through the solid object, maybe that's what's happening. Kind of maybe similar to the what they did with in the Philadelphia experiment. They're sort of phasing solid matter slightly out of space time, where you're still able to observe, the same world around you, but you're not actually there. And if someone was watching you, or was somehow had the vantage point to see what was going on, they wouldn't see anything. They wouldn't see the craft. They wouldn't see you. They wouldn't see you moving through the wall. What are your thoughts, real quick, about that before we jump back into the narrative?
Yes, and actually, those were my thoughts, because I have very interested neighbors to say. They're always very aware of what's happening around. And I was just shocked, and I was thinking, I mean, it was 3 a.m, but nobody would have their light on. All the lights were off. Usually my neighbor's little child's room usually has their night light on. Nothing. Gone. That was a very rare thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that
things
yeah,
are different about the world.
exactly.
That puzzles me, but go on. Yeah, go ahead.
So I do feel that it's almost as if they created a time bubble or a portal of some kind in which time stood still in that moment when I'm leaving my room and about to enter into this craft, because it was eerily still, and there was less light external to this space, like houses and things like that. Even street lights were dimmer. It seemed dimmer and just very distant.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then from the light, I see the top of my garage and then the light, and from the light emerges these 6 little lines that the light is so bright that it's distorting their shape, as they come out of the light. 6 of them, one of them approaches me, and just telepathically says the word calm, and gently raises his right hand, just gently. And I'm terrified, and I'm thinking like I'm about to lose it. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is this? I tried to scream, and I said, there has to be someone. Like I even thought of screaming my neighbor's name, and things like that. And by the way, the next day, I asked my neighbors if they had seen a weird light or anything like that. Nobody saw anything. Nobody heard anything.
And
However,
the light was of such a magnitude that it probably, if they could have seen it, it probably would have woken all of them up, because it would have, they would have noticed it, And, I've heard that the light is so bright that you can almost see objects, even with your eyes closed, that sometimes you can see them approaching through your eyelids because the light is so bright, and it just
the
still
light,
it.
yeah. Yeah, the light is incredibly bright, and it's white. It's pure. It's a strange, pure white light. And I'm saying that my ceiling, my walls, even my floor were covered with the white light, even though my blinds were closed. So it's like very directed, right? And yeah. So anyway, I'm immediately, all of that terror just eliminates from my body, and I feel completely calm and safe. And what I sense from the being is that it's not something malicious or negative. It's a very calm, very gentle being. And
What
I'm
do they look like at
yeah.
this point?
Yeah, so this is, incredible body that's like a humanoid that is gray but 7 foot tall, naked, no clothing or anything, just pure gray body, muscular body, no sexual organs, just muscly but long legs. The body is a little softer here, kind of yellowish gray towards the center of the belly. Muscular gray system here, with interesting formations of like where his bones, definitely not like a human, but this bone structure just very different. And muscly but lean, very lean body, lean arms, 3 fingers, or what is it, 3 fingers or 4 fingers, 3 fingers, and long fingers. And the body's neck is slim and long, and a very slim, narrow chin. The head is bigger but lean and taller, and the eyes are just impressive. Literally about this size is the size of like one of his eyes. That's how big the eye was. Black
Almond shaped or football shaped?
Almond shape.
Mm-hmm.
Almond shape eye. Ridges along the face structure, like very kind of bony, but not like a fluffy filled in face. Very, very lean type of face. And so, but the interesting thing is that it's not that he necessarily emitted a light, but I could feel very strongly that he was a peaceful, gentle being. And behind the eyes, it's you can sense movement, and that his range of vision is beyond our range of vision.
Hmm.
It's almost
You can sense movement behind the eye. In what sense can you sense? You don't mean that the eyes are moving. You can sense movement of what behind the eyes?
how can I explain it? It's like his eyes are looking at me, but it's almost as if there's movement of
Like some kind
light
of activity.
behind the eye, and you can sense that his range of vision is beyond our human capacity. And I don't know how else to explain that other than sensing to be seen in a very deep way, but also understanding that his awareness of our surroundings is much more profound than my own, or even my own capacity.
Hmm.
You could I was able to pick up on that in that moment,
Well,
and it
I wanna just
impressed me. Mhm.
well, go ahead and finish that, and I just wanted to mention something about, the profound differences, I think, here with, this, seeming gray, extraterrestrial, tall gray extraterrestrial, and the common, gray extraterrestrial, the small, gray extraterrestrial.
Yes.
Well, maybe I'll just inject it right here quickly. So it seems the consensus. I just finished Secret Life, David Jacobs's book, and it seems like the consensus of all. He gives the description of the small grays, and the consensus view is that there's no musculature for one thing at all. There's no discernible anywhere on the body musculature or bones. There's no rib cage that can be detected. There's no jawbone. There's no shoulder blades. There's no boniness at all. Everything is
Hmm.
smooth and rounded. uh,
Different, yeah.
and to me, that alone suggests a pretty profound difference in physiology.
That's interesting.
And
Yeah.
so that's interesting. But yeah, go on and say what you were going to say before I cut you off.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Well, it was shocking. The eyes were very shocking to me because what I picked up from the movement of those eyes is that the intelligence was intimidating. The power, the sensory power of this being is beyond anything I've ever presenced. You know, and it was very humbling because it was just so much in its own power and yet so gentle that that this being could probably do whatever to you, but it's very restrained, controlled, and aware of what is happening there.
And do you think that that's the automatic sort of perception that you would have, or do you think that feeling of feeling the power and sensing that was a deliberate conveyance of some kind? Do you think it meant for you to sense that in particular, what you were sensing in that moment, or that was just going to be sensed just by virtue of being in the vicinity of it anyway?
Yeah, amazing question. I definitely think that there's intentional participation simply because his direct intention was for me to be calm. I mean, he telepathically let me know, calm. And in that calm was inserted an understanding that I was safe and that this wasn't meant to harm me. Um, yeah. So, yeah.
So from that moment, at that moment, though, I just wanted to make clear or get clear. Were you suspended? Are you suspended in the beam coming up at the point that they're coming down, or how did that go? That they sort of came out of the craft on their own sort of little beams, or there was some kind of light stemming from them, or that they were traveling along, or
So the craft is a gigantic light that took up my entire yard up across the street, uh, covering completely my neighbor's house and my visibility of the street. So it was huge light. And the light came all the way down to the level of my, as if garage roof where I was, walk towards the entrance of the vessel that was there flush again, still flush, I think, was
Mhm.
I walking, was I gliding? I'm not 100% sure. I don't remember exactly if I was walking or gliding, but I do know that when I stepped on the craft, I felt stepping with my bare foot on the
Mm,
craft. And when I returned, my feet were dirty, as if I had left and walked outside barefoot.
mm,
Uh, yeah, so I imagine that I walked up on the roof. I have like little white little pebbles on top of my roof. And so, yeah, so the six of them went back into the craft. There's no beam; it's just the light emitting, and
mm.
from there, I'm being directed towards the entrance of this light. I can see what was interesting is that when I look to the right, I can see the edges of the vessel because I was looking to see if I could catch a neighbor or someone or see someone seeing this. But as I'm looking, the vessel is moving in and out of its own shape. It's a kind of lenticular light, plasma metallic substance that is just constantly vibrating and moving.
Lenticular as is that synonymous with disc-shaped craft?
Yes, yes, that's right. That's the best way I can describe it. Lenticular, but a bit more oval. Okay, so not like two plates stuck together like some sightings. This is a
Mm,
more oval,
got
less strict shape,
it.
more of a plasma system of light that has a lenticular form, but it's just constantly moving. And as I look down, as I'm stepping on board the craft is emitting a kind of uh, silver pinkish kind of iridescent glow to it, a very low iridescent glow. And as I step onto the craft, the feeling, how can I describe it? It's almost as if some energy shock is moving through my body and the craft is aware that I'm on it. It's conscious and I'm aware that I'm coming on it. And yeah, it's conscious. The craft
It's
is like a
conscious.
being
And
of
is there
itself.
any kind of, in some sense, greeting from the craft that you've entered on board? Is there any kind of acknowledgement from the craft to you personally as you're boarding a conscious craft like that?
Not so much as a greeting, like, hello, welcome, but
Mhm.
it's a kind of awareness that it was a technology that was conscious and that it knew that I was entering. And how can I explain that I knew that? It's almost as if it's some kind of sensory, like a hepatic, you could say. How do you say that word? Hepatic response. That when you enter, it would have a response to you, and I could feel that almost as if it would sense my vitals, almost as if it would sense my heartbeat or sense me, you
Mhm.
know. And the craft. Sorry. Mhm.
Real quick, because abductees never remember this, and it's always interesting. They hardly ever have recall of the moment that you're moving through the craft walls. Normally there's a gap right there, and then you
Mm.
gain conscious memory
Cool.
on the table. So you had full conscious memory. How did you go in? Was there an opening? Was there
Hey,
some
Jim,
kind of
Jim, hold
aperture?
on one second. Hey, I
Sure.
just want to let you both know that I'm gonna have to ditch out here for just a bit. We have it's yellow outside and it's pouring. Never seen it that color before. We are moved right into a pile of storm here. So I'm gonna duck out for just a bit and I will be back on ASAP.
Okay.
Okay, yep,
Thank
sounds
you.
good.
Yes. So when I'm entering, it's a circular shape. This is how I understood that it was lenticular. Just by entering on board the craft is kind of a circular shape to the entrance, and these are hallway. It's a hallway that I'm entering into. I can see the wall, the metallic plasma wall in front of me, the floor underneath me. This is technology that is just beyond anything we've seen here. It's not like pieces of metal put together. It
Mm.
is just some advanced one piece, very little crevices and wall and cuts or anything like that.
No angles, rounded everything, similar to how Bob Lazar described, melted, almost like everything was melted a little bit as if it was wax and then re-solidified or
Yeah, it is like one piece. It's not
yeah.
like separate pieces, and that's a technology that I not sure how it was made, but the entire it was a double-sided hallway that would move to the right and to the left. And the five other beings walk forward, and I'm here with the other one just directly in front of me, and I'm being guided to move to the left, down the left corridor. And actually, it's interesting that you mentioned that they don't remember walking through there, because what they immediately put up was a holographic screen within the craft that I'm in, and the holographic screen was a green a green field with like hills and a very blue sky. It looked very fake. I mean, it was so perfect. It looked like, when you drive out in Colorado to the open fields and there's just nothing. It was that's what it looked like.
And for what? So just to make sure I'm getting this right. So you walk in, nothing is there at first, and then emerges a kind of screen, like a holographic display in front of you that's showing a forested scene.
That's right. So I'm walking and I can see the hallway. And then all of a sudden, as I walk more into the hallway, before I get to see what's beyond around the corner of this bending hallway, immediately this holographic screen goes up, and the five beings go through that screen, through that light, as if a projector wall that was thicker than our projectors. And they just disappeared beyond there. And there was a little road within this green field. No trees. It was just open field of weird, like, undulating little hills, and then blue sky, very blue sky. And it's almost as if they created the hologram so that it would look like I'm walking on a little path, and I would follow that path. And the other gray just leads me down that path and then disappears behind me. And by the time I'm looking around, all I see is the hologram. And I know it's a hologram because I can hear things that beyond this hologram. But I'm walking down this little path, and I'm led into a gigantic triangular building, which is a hologram. It's not where I actually am. But I can't see anything inside the craft, just this hologram. And this gigantic building looks like some kind of abstract, super modern structure. I walk inside, it had 3 steps, and then it had a sunken living room to the right and a glass table, which I'll never forget. I don't know, it was a very strange one-piece glass table. And beyond that, there was a little Japanese garden, a picture. It was literally a picture of a Japanese garden out of the window of this building, this holographic building. And
what do you think was the purpose of doing all this right at the gate? Was it for effect? Was it to induce the right emotional effect? They want you to be relaxed, or was it, might as well, mask the appearance of the craft, just for the pleasure of the guest on board? Or what do you think was the intention behind doing that?
I believe that it was in order for me to be calm and to not get overwhelmed with the things that were around there. Because when I turned around, they showed me my aunt in her nightgown, and they paraded her in front of this holographic place. And I mean, it's clearly a hologram because, it's this green meadow, and then all of a sudden these 2 grays just show up out of nowhere from the hologram wall, walking with my aunt in her nightgown directly in front of me, and then disappear again through the holographic meadow. So it's clearly
you weren't under the delusion that all of a sudden, this was how the craft looks. You knew all along that it was an illusion.
Yes.
The appearance. Okay, yeah, go on. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. And I asked myself in that moment, what is it? It was, I have to admit, a little funny that they would do that, because it's kind of like I understood what they were doing, but at the same time, when I tried to yell out my aunt's name, I was just not able to. I wasn't able to, or she wasn't able to hear me. She's just completely unconscious.
And was there a frustration from that, or were you in such a state to where you felt fine, even though you couldn't yell out to your aunt?
There was no frustration in that moment. I was just kind of shocked, and I was I think there was a moment of confusion and maybe a little bit of fear, because I was wondering why they had me and my aunt. My aunt was clearly unconscious, and she was walking in her nightgown as I was in my night clothing.
She
She
was
was walking in her nightgown. Her hair was just like this, kind of unconscious. You can tell that she was unconscious in that moment. So that did concern me.
Mhm.
But they just let her disappear before I could ask any questions. Right when she left, they immediately lifted the hologram, and now I'm inside this giant room, and I can see.
How giant? How giant when you say giant?
Well, definitely more giant than it would appear from the outside of the craft. Okay, so the craft was huge, but at the same time, it was not proportional to where I thought I was going.
Mhm.
And it was a great, like dim lit, grayish, with lots of blue lights around. There seemed to be lights. It's I guess the metal somehow glows. It irradiates some kind of low light of some kind. And when I look to the right, there's this oval console where there are holographic images of planets and stars,
Mm.
like some kind of navigation console. And I saw it and I thought it was just so beautiful. And and then beyond that, I'm seeing um, what looks like panels, but maybe a glass. And I can see through to stars now. Now I can see through stars above, through this metallic substance. So it
Mhm.
was like translucent. The craft was actually translucent somehow. And I could see the stars over here, and I could see the stars over here as I'm looking through. And then I move down, and then in front of me there are three shorter grays that are in front of me, and they're holding this blue prism that has 8 layers. It's like 8 layers of a blue light.
They're multiple grays are holding the same prism. They're all holding on to one thing.
Three of them, they're not really holding it. It's kind of, I don't know if it was like floating or just hovering over the floor in front of them, but the
Mhm.
three little ones are presenting it. They're basically presenting it to me.
Mhm.
And somehow I'm directed to move forward towards them. And I walk towards them. And from the first blue prism, holographically emerges this stream of alien letters, which they are kind of showing to me. And I'm looking at the letters in this giant room, and the letters are, it looks like a mathematical equation, like a chemical mathematical equation. There are some mathematical symbols, like advanced math, that I can recognize, periods and dots. Yes.
But none of it. But it is not decipherable. You're not like inexplicably able to know. There wasn't any kind of inner knowing that, oh, I know what this is, or recognition of that. It was kind of, aside from being there some similar symbols that we might use in equations, it was foreign to you, or it felt
Yeah,
it felt foreign. Hmm.
I desperately tried to recognize them. I couldn't. And I tried to remember them. I have somewhat of a photographic memory, so I can kind of see, and try to remember them. But what I realized is that when I would calm and stop doing that, I would be in like, I had an influx of memories, pictures, images in my mind. And actually, the script, the words, the numbers, the points, every single dot was communicating something. And the way that they speak is in universes. And that's the best way I can explain it. But it was a telepathic script, language.
Let's just linger on that, although you might not be able to add anything to it. The way that they speak is in universes. Now, does that hint at the sort of magnitude of the information that is? What do you mean when you say universes? What does that suggest when you say that they speak in universes?
So imagine you're asking me how I'm doing, and I tell you I'm good. The body that I'm in is good. The room that I'm in is here. The room that I'm in is in this place. This place is on this planet. This planet is in this universe. And now I'm directing to you the thought of how I am in the construct of this entire system that is a part of me.
So like a holistic kind of conveyance, incorporating all facets of what could be conveyed about whatever it is.
Exactly.
Okay.
And what the images that I remember so vividly from what was being shown to me was an image of Hiroshima, an image of the planet, an image of the different main ancient civilizations like the pyramids. There was an image of that. There was an image of World War II. There was an image of children in Africa. There was an image. I mean, just massive amounts of information in addition to what they were trying to translate to me.
And what was transpiring in your consciousness as far as emotion and feeling when you're seeing World War II? And when you say Hiroshima, you mean the atomic bomb, not just the city Hiroshima. You mean
Yes.
the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima in World War II. And what was the feeling at that during those moments?
Yeah, so it was a layer of the mushroom, right, of the bomb in Hiroshima, and then at the same time, it was an understanding of another universe that it would switch from the mushroom of Hiroshima to the universe, to some universe, and then just that contrast was just like overwhelming because obviously it kind of shifts your perception as to what is happening on this planet. And basically that's pretty much all I could take. Just like, I think that probably reading two of the symbols of what they were trying to explain to me, but in that was so much. And it just, the language. Yes.
Did it give you another perception of those events that you could describe? So you saw those events, but you felt them in a larger context. And how did the nature of those events change, if it did, in your mind? Or was there any different feeling about them? Was it a feeling of, oh, okay, this was all, or what was it, if anything, that you can describe about that?
Well, I understand everything that they told me now because later in 2017, when I went into hypnotic regression, I understood that what they were doing was downloading certain specific information to me, which I then recalled vividly in this session. So they were giving me kind of a rewriting of world history, so I would understand why I was even on this craft to begin with. I think they were helping me understand why I was there, to help me not go into panic and to kind of understand that what my collaboration or what my participation is in all of this. So my perception shifted immediately because I began to understand the interconnectivity of myself and these beings, but not all the way yet until the rest of the experience, which I will explain to you. But it was the beginning of just my mind being cracked open in a way that I've never, could expect. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, what happened next then?
Yeah, so after that, the language disappeared into a pink notebook. And the pink notebook is something that I have. I use it on daily basis. And I was wondering, why are they using that? Probably just so, I think what they were communicating to me was to understand that information is mine now, or they're just giving it.
Symbolized information, maybe. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So anyway, that dissolved, and out of the next prism I'm seeing 7 planets, and it's the constellation that I'm very close to since I was a little girl, the constellation of the Pleiades. So the Pleiadian constellation shows up, it expands, and next thing we know, we are landing somehow in the planet Maya in the Pleiadian constellation.
In reality, or was it just an envisioning experience?
In reality, yeah. In this reality, in this construct, I guess you can say, this dimensional space that I'm in now.
Wow.
We are traveling, and we arrive in planet Maya, and
you can see that you've landed there because the walls are transparent, and you saw the process of landing on a planet. You can see that going on outside.
That's right. The colors of the entire craft shifted from a very dark bluish color into a brighter purple pinkish kind of color. And not only that, but I'm being directed out of the craft, onto this mountainous open field where
Mhm.
I'm walking down these six beings, these tall, beautiful white beings with different color hairs, and I'm being telepathically told that the second one to the right is me. I can feel and I sense and I know that that is me. And what I'm receiving is that it was a man. I was a man, a Pleiadian elder, part of this little group that they were talking about. I don't know, the future of their Pleiadian race. They were talking about some serious matters to them that they were kind of discussing there. And yeah, so I understood that that was me. And then we are taken back into the craft and then taken to another part. But not only did we move to another part of the planet, but we also moved to a different timeline, completely different timeline.
Well, before we get to that spot, let's just go back. Now, what do you think was going on when you were presented to this other you? And by other you, do you think that that was a fragment of your soul that was simultaneously alive in an alien body? And was there any communication between that you and the you that is you? Um, and do you remember what they were talking about? And was it significant in any kind of way with respect to what you had to know?
So this was a Pleiadian elder, and his job there, their societies are built on very advanced concepts of community, and all communication is telepathic. So their level of understanding and correlating with each other is very advanced. They were discussing um, solutions for their Pleiadian uh, communities and how to bring them into deeper communion. All the communities
So,
on a
so
very
there were problems essentially. There were problems. Does that indicate that there were problems that they were talking about solutions to?
yeah, and not from a sense of problem like problematic like here on Earth. It's like an
Mm.
issue, but more of a collaboration. So in other words, what they were letting me know is that I'm existing as an elder, which means that I had many, in order to be an elder in this kind of society, you have to live many lifetimes at a certain evolutionary level of consciousness. That's kind of what they were kind of directing towards me. And I kind of understood that by the second event where, um, so in other words, no urgency. It's a completely different way of being in this culture. There's no fear. It's nothing is fear based. Nothing is urgent. Nothing is no one is harming anyone. It's not a survival based reality or mindset or culture. You can say everything is very much in harmonic order, and everything is done with harmony and very peaceful interactions. And there's a very high level of understanding, which is new to me to recognize that. And once again, so much information is kind of passed into you with just, I guess, telepathic impressions.
And do you think that that was in the 3D? Or do you think that that was this Pleiadian realm planet? Do you think that that was in the third, the observable universe that we live in, or this was potentially on a higher plane?
This is a higher dimension, indeed,
Uh-huh.
absolutely higher dimension, not a 3D dimensional plane. Just in the way that they would move, in the way that the grass would. I mean, there's so many reasons. The way that gravity operates there, just very different construct.
But
Uh,
you're there in your body made of the density of material existent on this plane, like the is that possible to be taken there momentarily in your physical body? Or
Yeah.
were you, or was your body maybe left behind in the craft in 3D, and you only your astral body went for this journey to the Pleiadian higher realm?
You know, when you enter, we're very multidimensional. So when you enter into this dimensional plane, the density of our bodies is dissolving. In a sense, it's transmuting or elevating into a higher octave, which means that it moves at a higher frequency. The oscillation of every cell just changes completely. So it's not that you're at a density of a three-dimensional body like me right now. I can feel myself like this. And I feel that our bodies are able to move along, into these dimensional planes
Mm.
when a certain frequency is sustained, whether artificially by the environment or by these beings, perhaps that create a force field to sustain a certain frequency. So I don't believe that it's 100% my physical body. I do believe that it's a version of my body,
Hmm.
perhaps, a fractal, you can say, of my body. That is, yeah.
Right. And what did the Pleiadian elder look like? Did he resemble the stereotypical image of a Pleiadian, blonde hair, blue eyes, or was he different?
It was very white skin, white hair, white clothing. All of them were very pale, very white, very little coloration to their skin. The only variation of color was in their hair, which is interesting. Even for many Pleiadians, which I was actually in front of thousands of them, and they're very similar like that. The variation in color is mostly in their eyes and their hair. They have incredible color eyes. The eyes of this man was bluish, deep blue, and a lighter turquoise blue, and yeah, very lightly colored lips, very fine features.
Hmm.
Probably maybe Nordic, but very fine features, you
Hmm.
can say. Yeah.
And any kind of aged appearance, or no? He was
Old,
white, had white hair. No,
older, elder.
it
Yeah,
was an
you could
appearance
tell
of
he was.
he was aged in terms of the skin, and wrinkled skin, or in just in
Mhm.
terms of other
No,
features.
that's an interesting question. I think you can tell he was older by his facial structure. Definitely wasn't more youthful and more plump like the younger ones. So yeah, I guess you can tell that there was some aging, but his age was like thousands of years old. It wasn't like 65. So their aging process is much longer than we are.
Hmm. Okay, so then you're not there for very long, I guess, right? You're witness to some conversation that they're having about solutions, and then you're suddenly removed to somewhere else. Still on the craft? You're still on the craft all the time, or did you ever get out of the craft,
Yes.
or and then you
Yes,
got back in the craft and then were moved?
that's right. I got out of the craft here in this field watching them move. I don't believe that they can see us or sense us. So it's almost as if we're there, but we're also kind of viewing them from a distance. And then we go back into the craft and we're taken to another part of the planet Maya. And this place was more of the earth was deep purple, incredible, like a purple yam, like that, like a cooked purple yam. It was deep purple earth, and it's very ruggedy, and the stones are very sharp, kind of like what is the name of that stone? Shungite, kind of like shungite.
Which is kind of like a dark grayish, right? Kind of
Oh
color.
no, it's not shungite. I mean the stone. Well, I'm sorry, I'll remember the name. But anyway, it's like little slate pieces. And the earth would be very rugged. The stone, it was very stony mountainous stones that they're very pointy, and the dirt is deep purple and the rocks are deep purple and black,
Hmm.
and this was like a very large valley that held thousands of these Pleiadians, and I'm sitting at the very top of this mountain speaking telepathically to them, and I'm teaching something, and I'm a female in this other timeline, and I'm slightly younger.
Okay, so something really different has happened now. Now you're no longer you. And you have a change of state. Something is happening internally. You don't identify as Geraldine anymore at this moment.
Oh, no, no,
Or
no. No, no, I'm watching this female that is supposed to be me. Yes, I'm not her.
oh, okay. I thought all of a sudden you were this person. I thought you were just
No,
you were this person. Okay, go
no,
on.
no. We're just watching. We're just watching from, again, the craft somehow lands in this, mountainous place. We get down and just view from afar, myself, and I'm watching, the mountains and the how this land looks, and these people, thousands and thousands of these Pleiadians, all very, very pale skin, very pale, tall beings, and they're all speaking telepathically. So I guess their point was to show me that I was Pleiadian several lifetimes. I am simultaneously Pleiadian several lifetimes. In this time, I'm a female and I'm teaching something. And what I understand now is that basically they're letting me know what I've been doing many times for a long time, and that's what I'm doing now. And back then I would never imagine in a million years that I would be teaching anything, in my life. I had a completely different life and career during this experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know that that's what they were trying to communicate to me. But so we see that. I'm understanding what they're teaching. I guess you can explain it like scientific philosophy is what they were discussing, these Pleiadians. And I go back into the craft, and again, we are back in the craft, and my attention is directed to the third of this prism. And from the third of this prism, once again, everything turns a little darker, and I'm being shown 8 yellow lights, and from those 8 lights, 4 begin to manifest and emerge. They materialize from those 8 lights inside of the craft in front of me. And the first one is this little boy. The second is a little girl, and then a taller boy, like a young adult, maybe 16, 17 years old. And first thing that caught my eye is that the one little girl that had long blonde hair is a child that I had a dream with, reoccurring dream as a child, that my mother would emerge from a yellow light, and she would be holding the hand of this child, presenting her to me. And, I would be very confused as to whether that would be my future little sister, or maybe that was a child that I would be having in the future. But it was a dream that I had over and over and over and over again for several years.
So you instantly recognized her from that dream when you saw her.
Exactly, yes. And the other little boy, what was interesting about them is that their bodies are much more thin, smaller, more frail kind of structures of their bodies. And they had much larger heads than normal our human children would have. Their eyeballs were gigantic. The size of this ocular socket was the eyeball.
And all pupil, mostly pupil and some white, or
no, pupil and white, but their pupils are very different, extremely beautiful. Just the pigmentations of colors that are just unreal, and they shift. Even how the eyes have these little, pigmentations. They would move those colors.
Pigmentation on the pupil, so not the iris. There's actually pigmentation in.
Sorry, the iris. The iris. The
okay.
iris was what had the pigmentation, this incredible pigmentation. And you could see the white. You can see the, what is that called? Claris?
I don't even know, actually.
It's called Claris, yeah, something like that. Yes. Yeah. But what shocked me was that when I made eye contact with the child, I felt naked because they could see right through me. They knew everything about me, absolutely everything. They could see how I was feeling. They could see how I was confused. They knew why I was there. And they were very gentle, but again, this incredible intelligence that is just intimidating. And they knew that it was just an imprint, a visitation of a emotional imprint with them. And immediately I started to have memories of having them in my hands, in my arms, holding them, memories of being on board craft, being on a metal table with a light over me, and this child being extracted from my body. All of these memories came back just in an instant, in that moment, connecting with each of them. And it was extremely overwhelming. And I had this maternal instinct that kicked in, and I thought, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to leave my life. I have children. I didn't know I had children. Where do these children come from? I don't remember having children, and I was raking my head trying to think, how could you have forgotten that you have children? What were
Yeah,
you doing?
that's what struck me when I listened to your testimony the first time. You know, the feeling
Mhm.
of how could I have forgotten that I had all these children? You know, I mean, that I could imagine that that really must have shook you. But go
Yes.
on. Yeah. So, and so this was not, it wasn't organic just from seeing them, all these memories come up. All these memories are you think being projected at you? Like this is part of the experience. You're supposed to remember this particular memory and then this memory and this memory. Or do you think just seeing them just organically sort of brought up those memories in the normal fashion that memories are jogged like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think that that recall was probably by design in that moment, and perhaps they were projecting them into me, or perhaps the beings were also allowing me to remember that finally.
Mhm.
But everything was unlocked in that moment, and yeah.
And
So and I was searching through those memories, just trying to find familiarity. Like, okay, so now I'm seeing like all this happened, but how come I didn't know that when I was back home? What was I, Yeah. So. Mhm.
and they were all four hybrids were markedly different from one another. Did I get that right? And there was one, I don't know if you brought this up yet, there was one, right, that looked reptilian in appearance and had scaly skin.
That's right. So the three of the children were definitely more humanoid. So, they look like kind of normal children, in a sense that they had hair. One of them had brown hair, one of them blonde hair. The other little boy had curly blonde hair that was very translucent, strange substance, strange kind of beings. And then the other one was much taller and much older, and he had like, I don't know how to explain it, like reptilian texture skin. And he had little tiny little horns up here, like not horns, but just little mounds, I think, or formation of his skull was just
Hmm.
different.
Mhm.
And it shocked.
Very, very alien looking, that one.
Very hybrid, yeah.
Yeah. But yet you, if I recall it right, you saw yourself, you saw somehow
Yes.
like as you can in a baby, looking at a baby that's yours, you can see yourself in that baby, and you could see yourself in all four of these, including the reptilian one.
Yes. It's the most incredible thing, and I imagine only parents can understand this, or
Yeah.
perhaps long lost siblings that have never seen their father or mother or brother.
Yeah.
But immediately you just know that they are a part of you. It's completely undeniable, and even in the way that they would look, even though their faces were different to ours, just the way that he would turn to gaze, around the room, and it just shocked me.
Mhm.
That I instantly understood that they were mine. And then right after that is when the memories started to come up, and I understood. But they knew that I could tell that they knew what I was doing there, and I didn't understand what was happening. So I did become very emotional towards the end of that. Hmm.
And so one looks reptilian, three of them look fairly human. Would you say the three that look fairly human conform to the typical um, uh, hybrid child appearance, which is thin and frail, very thin skin. Sometimes you can see the veins through the skin, large eyes. Do you
Yeah.
think? Do you think it's just the same type of hybrid that is described by the common abductee mother?
Yes, I think so. In that the skin is very thin, bluish, grayish skin almost,
Hmm.
very pale, big eyes, the hair being kind of different than our hair. Um,
Sparse hair, kind of unkempt, maybe, or
well,
thin.
honestly, they were very beautiful. I have to
Oh,
say they were beautiful, and they didn't have sparse hair. They didn't look like they were like they had some genetic problem. They were very beautiful little children.
okay. Well, that's kind of a difference then. A large percentage of abductee mothers feel instantly that there's something wrong, whether rightly or wrongly.
Mhm.
Maybe it's because they only know human children, and from that vantage point, they seem like off kilter in some way. But a lot of abductee mothers, yeah, feel that they seem listless or sickly in some kind of way. But you didn't have that sense at all with these four children.
I didn't. In fact, I thought they were highly intelligent. I was humbled. You can tell that they were absolutely extremely psychic. You can tell because how can I say? It's almost as if I could feel myself inside of the child when I knew that it was mine. And when you're so close to someone, you know yourself, you know how they're feeling. So it was a high emotional intelligence from them. They were very still and very calm, that kind of incredibly intelligent gaze. And what else? Not sickly at all, incredibly intuitive, and actually they knew everything about my earth human life. They knew everything about me. I could sense somehow telepathically that they knew about my human life, and that shocked.
Did they read on you right away, or did it give you the sense that they've been kind of monitoring you your whole life, or since they've been born anyway, for that part?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not sure if it's monitoring specifically. I just think that they kind of just know, and I guess they remember all of our visitations as opposed to myself not remembering them.
Mm-hmm.
So I could tell that they knew our history and what had all of our memories. They had them. They understood them quite clearly, but I didn't remember them until that moment. And so I guess at that point I felt like, okay, I wanted to respond to them with human emotion, which is like, I love you and I'll take care of you and I'll be here for you. But they weren't expecting that. And it's so small in comparison to their understanding of our existence and our exchange. So it was kind of like extremely emotional, confused, and at the same time slightly embarrassed that that's all I had to offer at that time.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't have any of that expectation at all, And I
Mm-hmm.
guess at that point, when I started to think in my mind, I'm ready to leave my human life behind. I guess I'll just live here with them or be where they are. They removed them. They just left the room completely. And
Dematerialized again, or they walked out?
they walked out. They
Mm-hmm.
walked out.
But
And
coming
and
in, they materialize, and I wanted to hone in on that. So, do you think that they teleported there, or they're non-physical also, and they materialize into the physical, or are they primarily in corporeal form in some kind, or were they only in corporeal form for that presentation?
Yeah,
Or
really interesting question. I think that it's more of a kind of a teleportation from one part of the craft to this part of the craft. I think the lights were more symbolic that they put there. They put 8 lights. I only met 4 of those 8. So for some reason they didn't show me the other 4. But uh, I think those lights were just meant to symbolize, and then as they entered, manifested into the room, it's almost as if they teleported somehow there from another part of the craft. That's the understanding that I got,
Hmm.
because I believe that they live on that craft, or they live on many certain crafts, is what I kind of understood.
Hmm. Okay, and so what happens next? Is there more from the prism at this point, or
Yes. So at that point, when I was trying to make sense of what my role was in all of this, they leave the room, and I telepathically they say to me, "Why are you suffering?" Because I became very emotional when they were leaving. I started to cry, and they showed me a tulip. a red tulip, and holographically now from the prism emerges this red tulip. And the red tulip, they zoom in on it, and all of a sudden, holographically, we're in a field. This is inside the craft. And I'm zooming into the molecular structure of the tulip. It's like one of those micro videos of like zooming into the molecular structure of a little plant. And it goes all the way down to the atom. And they begin to expand that and show me, they're giving me this incredible lesson, I guess, on the structure of matter. And as it turns from the tulip into this little atom, I'm then being shown a street in New York, a busy street in New York, and I'm being shown humans, and humans have a different frequency than matter. And their essence, their soul, their life force is completely different vibrational frequency to matter. And they're showing me that distinct, separation of what that looks like.
They use the tulip as like a contrast in some kind of way, as contrast.
Yeah, to understand molecular structures and I guess cellular, how the oscillation of matter, of particles are different in different substances. So I guess that living organism of a plant in comparison to matter, the asphalt of the street in comparison to the human and their soul or their essence. And immediately I started to kind of understand what they're showing me. And after that, they show me the nebula, the Orion Nebula. And at that point, it's almost as if I'm within this nebula. And I don't see, but I'm feeling simultaneously myself on Earth, on the planet, living life. In the Pleiades, they showed me those two separate timelines. And I'm also at the same time, oh, sorry, there's a strange little feedback sound.
There's a little bit of,
It's okay.
say something, Todd, your audio might be bad.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. We have an audio artifact now. I guess you're coming in on your cell phone. You don't have power?
I'm on the tablet. I can log off and try to get on my phone, see what happens.
Yeah, maybe try the phone. Yeah, there's it's like an echo. I can hear myself echoing, but distortedly. Anyway, where were we? Okay, where were we exactly?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I remember. So, so they're basically showing me I'm inside of this nebula, and at the same time, I can see myself living my Earth life. I can feel myself. At the same time, I guess I dissolved into a nebula. They're giving me the experience of becoming all and nothing, as I'm feeling my Earth life. And I'm feeling the Pleiadian life. I'm feeling myself on the craft, and I can see all of them at the same time. I can sense all of them at the same time. And for the first time, I experienced the most incredible peace, just overwhelming peace, that I'm understanding the complexity of my human life and my family and the smallness of all the problems that I'm used to having there. And then at the same time, being aware of this infinite potential that exists. And, it was a piece that I will never forget. It's just something that you just don't feel here on this planet. And
similar to maybe people who have near-death experiences, that kind of peace and love.
Well, actually, I've had a near-death experience, and yes, in the death, there is a certain alleviation that you feel when you detach from the physical body, but it's very different than this feeling of just being absolutely in unison with everything simultaneously. And yes, it's just unbelievable. And at that point, after that, I'm back in the craft. And then after that, next thing I am, I open my eyes and I'm on the edge of my bed, upside down. And it's 6:15 in the morning. And my body is just hurting me. Everything hurt me. I feel like I was just in a car accident. Everything was aching. and I'm grabbing my phone, and I was shaking, and I slumped down to the floor, and I start calling the hospital, and I say, "Oh my God, the children! Like, I have to get them back somehow." That's what my thinking, and I'm starting to call the hospital. I'm thinking I have to talk to them. Maybe they can help me because there's something wrong. They need to check me. Why am I hurting all of a sudden? Did something happen to me? And then I stop calling the hospital. I say, maybe I should call the police first and see if there's a department for missing children. I mean, trust me, I know that this thinking is insane, but that's the first thing that came to my mind.
It's rational. Yeah, I mean, it felt like something like an emergency, has just happened, and you've got to, I mean, it's that funny predicament, where there's no, there should be some, avenue, to get help from, with this kind of situation, but there isn't, with these
Yeah.
kinds of experiences. But yeah, no, it doesn't sound crazy. I think a lot of people go through the exact same thing, and yes, but anyway,
Yeah. So anyway, I realized obviously how silly that would be to tell them that I was just on board a craft, and I was thinking how to connect again with the children and whatnot. But anyway, I put it down, and I began to draw in my pink notebook, coincidentally, which was right there, all the symbols that I had seen on board the craft, and it was pages and pages and pages of whatever I could remember from that. And after that, I mean, I wasn't feeling well. So I slept. I went back to bed, and I slept the entire day, entire Saturday. This happened on a Friday night, all Saturday until Sunday, probably in the afternoon. Um,
wow.
and then the first thing I did was call my parents to let them know what had happened to me. And I told them, I expected them to laugh, but actually my father says, "Oh yeah, that happens. That happens sometimes. I've had lots of experiences too." And my mom says, "Oh yeah, we've had experience. Your grandmother has experienced this so much when she was younger." And I was just like, "How, what do you mean? How, you guys never talked about this? How can this be normal to you?" And they were like, "Yeah, well, it's like, you're probably just, waking up consciousness and starting to experience these things." And I was just, shocked. So that phone call ended, and I had forgotten about my aunt for a minute because I forgot I saw her. So, um, yeah, then Monday morning comes around, and there is when I began to see my client was just this gigantic ball of light, and I could feel everything. She was in a court case to get custody of her children, and I could see what she had for breakfast. I could see what she was thinking, what she was going to do in court, what was going to happen in court. And I helped her with information about that. And she went to court, and she was able to have a good experience in that court because of what I told her. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, so it changed my life, but I felt so sensitive that I couldn't even go to the grocery store. My skin would hurt because I could feel everything for about 3 months. And that's what happened.
Wow. Okay. Let's just pause briefly here and discuss a little bit about maybe for the remaining time, I'd like to get into the hybrid program because you have a lot of knowledge on this. But before we get into that knowledge, you got this knowledge direct from, if I'm understanding right, you went under hypnotic regression and you had some experiences and downloads occurred while you were under hypnotic regression, and that's how you know everything that you know about this sort of breadth of hybrid programs in the universe. Is that, am I right in terms of where you got that from? It's from your experiences. It's not from research. It's from direct from.
Yeah, so I tried to do a lot of research after 2013. I recently met a partner during that time, and I didn't know the language, like what to type in, how to call it, alien babies. And I did find Bridget Nielsen's group of her website, and I reached out several times. I never heard back, unfortunately, but I realized that other women were having these kinds of experiences. But I just wasn't finding that much responses to it. So I tried to do my own internal meditation for many years. But my family and my partner at the time told me not to go deeper into it. They didn't want me involved with any of that. They said, your reputation is going to get ruined if you start talking about this. Don't talk about it. So I stayed silent. And in 2017, it occurred that I was able to get this hypnotherapy session with Alba Weinman. And it was from one day to the next, when people wait like 6 months to see her. I don't know how. And so I went to the appointment. And before I went to the appointment, I mentioned there was this hawk, this incredibly beautiful hawk that appeared to me when I was jogging in the morning. And basically somehow let me know, things are going to change. So I just want to mention that was a very interesting thing that happened.
Yeah, synchronicity, which does seem to accompany, big events,
Yes.
Gives you this sense, I think, that there's a kind of divine sort of undercurrent, maybe, to what's unfolding,
Sure. Yeah, it was very interesting. But so then I went into the hypnotherapy session, and immediately my questions were all about trying to understand the hybrid. My question was, why are we being used for that? What is the purpose of that? What is the human soul? I just wanted to understand, like, what are we doing here? Because what is this about, the creation of these children? What is that? What is it for? And why so many of these women are doing it? Is it special? Is it certain kind of women? And that's basically what the hypnotherapy was going to answer. And immediately, I lived this couple past lives, and then I dropped into this kind of state in which I'm being shown the map of the world and the inception of life on this planet. Essentially, I had a lifetime in Petra, where I am managing soul energy for these beings called Anunnaki beings. And these are words that I never heard before, so I'm saying very foreign words, and also working.
First time you heard Anunnaki.
Yes.
That experience, which is interesting, Gilliard.
It is everything in this session. I've never read it or heard it anywhere in my entire life, which is where my research then came into play. Okay, so basically this hypnotherapy provided kind of a guideline, an outline for where I was going to get my answers. And Nephilim, Anunnakis, there was even understanding the connection between Jesus Christ and Christ consciousness that essentially was mentioned, shown to me in this session. And then bloodlines, specific bloodlines from the origin, conception of life, being kind of brought through history, very specifically, including the whole concept of maintaining bloodlines within royal families for a very specific reason. And then certain ancient information being suppressed, and then the church, and then the industrialization, and then so on and so forth, essentially showing me world history until we get to World War II, until we get to Africa, what happened in Africa, what happened in South America, the history of the US, the history of Russia, and how these bloodlines kind of developed through history into what we know today. And essentially the role of the hybridization program within all of that.
Real quick, so the bloodlines you're talking about, are these essentially the same, like, say, what David Icke says about the elite royal bloodlines, the family dynasties that control everything? Are these the same bloodlines that you're referring to? And they go back to the origin of life, these bloodlines?
Yeah, exactly. And I haven't read much of David Icke's work, but I am aware that he talks about bloodlines. Right now, I'm working on my book, and I've been researching for my book from the perspective of biological history, DNA sequencing, the origin of that, and our origins in that kind of, from that perspective. Okay. And I'm supporting it with some anthropological research in that sense. But yes, these are original bloodlines that were seeded by seemingly these kind of Anunnaki beings that were one of many races, original races. No, the Anunnakis were not original races from here. They were a race that came and breeded with the original races of this planet.
Mm-hmm.
So it was shown to me that three main bloodlines, a red, a blue, and a green, which I think coincidentally is very similar to what many of these writers are discussing, which I didn't know about until later doing the research. But apparently these three colors of DNA, no, not DNA, bloodline, are very, very important. The red bloodline.
I've never heard of these colors. I've heard of like the bloodlines behind like the Japanese dynasties are associated with the color green, and they call those secret societies like the Green Dragon Society. But this is the
Exactly.
first time I've heard of that. Yeah, I'm going to write this down. But go on. Yeah.
Okay, yes. Well, I think, who was it? Well, I think Sitchin was mentioning that there were three main bloodlines as well. And so the red bloodline was shown to me with the name of and this is controversial, a Jewish bloodline, but not in terms of the religion, but in terms of the construct of the first man as designed by the matrix system. Okay. And essentially, these are Middle Earth beings, and there are many kind of many kind of civilizations that have lived on this planet. All the ancient civilizations on this planet have so much history, to the point where the origin of man is not really just simply in Mesopotamia. We have many origin points on this planet, and that's something that I'm going to be researching much more this year. But essentially, the blue bloodline represents a Pleiadian bloodline, and the green representing this reptilian, snake, and draconian beings that have then seeded beings on this planet. And of course, we see that in our global history. So, yeah, from that point, these three main bloodlines were combined to create, which would then evolve into the human race, what we know today. And we are one of many versions of these kinds of genetic, I guess, creations.
Oh, okay. So modern Homo sapien has the genetics of these three races. We all have the genetics of even, say, the reptilians. And I've heard that before, but I never knew whether that was definitely true or not.
Right. And so what I found with my research is that when you begin to look at even the embryonic development, how we move through many phases of development, it's in the embryonic development itself that we can see kind of the different phases that we have gone through as organisms in history. And in addition to that, many parts of our anatomy, our biology, are helping us understand how we have evolved from this. Making it very, very simple is the reptilian brain, the survival construct of our entire body, is modeled after that kind of anatomy from the reptilian races. The development of the pineal gland, as well as part of one of these development of these bloodlines. So it's a very complex system, but essentially we are made out of that. We are essentially evolved from these original hybridized bloodlines, and it's what makes us different to other hybrids. But the most important part, aside from their mechanistic, evolutionary bodies, is essentially our soul. Because it's actually the life force that is the most important, and the DNA, because the human DNA essentially functions like portal. It's like a portal into many of these dimensional. Every single bloodline is a portal to an entire library of information in history. And so what is actually being hybridized is the access to that information, which is what makes certain bloodlines more, quote unquote, desired than others for some of this information.
Okay, and let me just paraphrase that a little bit. Okay, so we're special because we have all of these different genetics from certain races, and that's maybe why there's so many hybridization programs going on Earth, because we have a lot of. That's what I've always thought. I've always heard that the reason why our genetics are special is because there was 12. Some people say 12. Maybe it isn't 12. Maybe it's 3 races that contributed their DNA to us at our origin, and that's why they're interested in our genetics. But you're saying that it's not so much the genetics per se, but what they allow access to, as far as the frequency of those genetics, allowing access to a plane of where that race originates from. Am I getting this at all right? And there's much knowledge and maybe even technical knowledge, that can be gotten, from those planes or frequencies, maybe.
I guess you can say it's experience is what is valuable, but that's really simplifying something. Let me explain. DNA is just like mitochondrial DNA holds an aggregate copy of the before, of all the lineage before. We hold within us many generations, but the DNA is just the blueprint of the manifestation of the physical body for the purpose of experience of the expansion of this universe. And the expansion of the universe is flowing through natural evolutionary cycles. Every single species, and I don't really consider them species, we have 13 main archetypes in which infinite potential is self-organizing itself in this dimension. And those 13 main archetypes are essentially divided by what we know as these species. We call them species, but they are vibrational frequencies of archetypal identification. The human evolves through all those archetypes as form of experience in order to evolve and become whole as one in the bigger picture of things. So we within our DNA, what allows us to have that experience in this construct is the DNA. So whatever lifetimes you've had that are memorized and recorded in your genetic information, you have access to that dimension. Why? Because nothing is past or future. Everything is accessible, simultaneous to the now. So essentially, you become a living library, which allows you to have access to infinite information, and it's valuable because it's experience and it's knowledge essentially that is acquired through your DNA. You record that information, and in order to have a very highly advanced organism, the more that it has access to more of that, the more advanced it is. What allows the human to be especially valuable is that the human has activated DNA. And what is activated DNA? It's become such a buzzword, but in reality, it is the most highly conductive bioelectrical energy system. So every human that becomes highly conductive has access to more of its DNA, more of the memory that is held in that DNA, more access. And essentially, we can travel through the DNA to simultaneously to these timelines, which are available to us in the now. I hope that's understandable. Please let me know if I can clarify.
No, yeah. Well, I don't know how our audience is doing, but I think I understand what you're saying. But in a more practical sense, maybe. So the races that are trying to hybridize with our race, when they get the final product of the hybrid that has all of our genetics, what opens up for them? And they don't already have, they don't already have, many races that they've been hybridized with, or is there just this sort of push to, further multiply the genetic information?
You see, once a soul is created, an entire universe, an entire portal is created to all of this information. Souls that are created, a soul can never be eliminated. Once it's created, it exists through infinity. It's non-destructible. Okay, so just like us, we evolve and we continue to experience on and on and on. Our life experiences many lifetimes, many dimensions simultaneously. Nothing dies. Okay, but the creation of a soul is very interesting because the essence that is pulled forth is holding access to many of these dimensional planes. And what do they get from that is, again, it's experience. Okay, because every single soul is experiencing separation temporarily. Otherwise, it's infinite potential. Okay, so it's every soul that is created is a fractal of infinite potential that separates temporarily in order to experience something. That information is accumulated and recorded in this DNA, which is not just human DNA. It's an entire. It's really within the morphogenetic field that connects all things that we're talking about here, because it's not just what is creating this body. Only 2% of DNA creates this physical body. The rest of that is processing whatever is occurring in the morphogenetic field, which is us existing in many timelines simultaneously. We have access to much more information than we think. So it's an evolutionary experience of itself that this soul is experiencing.
So where most of us are getting this wrong, because we're only thinking about the physical, I think, in regard to the hybridization programs. And myself, I've only been thinking about, what they're doing is creating an avatar which can be inhabited, that could survive perhaps on the Earth plane, in the particular physics arrangement of physics that we have here. So it's much more than just the physical body. There's also a merging there's an energetic merging happening as well. John Mack talked a lot about species merger. Do you think that this is also an act of bringing together two species, of uniting in some kind of way? Or do you think that there's any truth to that, or any element that is not so much just about what can be gained, but sort of creating a bridge, between multiple species?
Well, you see, every time an organism is created, again, what that organism is created by will define that soul's experiences. And it gives it access to all the libraries that are in the DNA, should it choose to access them. Okay, so that's where the concept of free will plays a role. There is still this element of free will. So this human soul, you see, we're very interdependent. That's why I don't think it's just about creating or merging certain species for what you will create. What will be the product of merging two species is a very specific experience, and that's when the soul always has the ability to choose if it wants to stick to that experience or change it. Okay, so that's naturally what every soul is able to choose through its free will, regardless of whatever it is being created. Why? Because you see, in the things that are being created through the hybridization program, it's souls, but the key is how much of that soul's DNA is activated in each incarnation. and that is something that is parasitized and manipulated through darker systems. They create organisms that are highly deactivated so that they can be easily manipulated, almost like clones. Clones is one version of that. Another system is to create entities, or just not really embodied beings that they use to siphon information off something else. Okay, so it's created for parasitism. Another aspect of that is beings that are interdimensional. They live only in these, crafts, to carry certain things out, to do genetic testing, things like this. Another thing is the seeding of life on many planets, ours included. Okay, so all of this is part of this organic system of regeneration of this matrix. Now, I think that there's both light and dark to that. And I do believe that there is some kind of harmonic, like intrinsic harmonic order that is kind of overlaying all of this system, which is why I don't believe that we are just simply parasitized. I feel that the human has way more ability to choose what the product is doing. And I know that because of the construct of this system. When a human wakes up consciousness, even though an organism was designed for parasitism, the mother or the father, when it enters a higher octave, it can affect and communicate and move with this other organism that is being created, from which it's very connected through. So in that case, our awakening will define the direction of the species that we have through us. And also the direction of that species. Because again, when we talk about species, we're talking about archetypal frequencies. We're not really talking about just, species in a sense. It's just a species which is with its own agendas and ideas. We're talking about frequencies. Everything is energy.
And that's all the species? They all correspond to a certain archetype? They aren't all across the board, certain species, possessing maybe differing archetypes. They're just one archetype. Each species corresponds to a particular. No. Okay.
No, it's exactly as you say, that within every species, there's a ranges of species, again, just like the human race. So that's why it's so difficult to say, hey, the reptilians are evil. But we can discern by frequencies. And one way to understand that is the more parasitic they are, the more self-serving and survivalist these species are, the more that they're going to just take and try to manipulate and invert natural order. The higher they are, the less they will interfere with you, which is why I don't feel that very, very high beings are participant in the hybridization program. I feel that the hybridization program is only part of a very specific range of frequencies, which is one of these archetypal systems. Beyond the archetypal system is the matrix. That's the matrix. The matrix being a very defined construct of survival for a very specific ranges of frequencies. When you enter other dimensions, those constructs are very different. They're designed differently. They don't operate by those survivalist, primitive concepts. So, and the hybridization, there's beings that evolve beyond that.
So what about it seems like, there's different hybridization programs going on, and I think you mentioned that you were involved in at least 4 of them. But first, what about, it seems like there's one sort of broad, more major hybridization program that's being conducted by, it seems like a smallish gray. It seems like it's a gray type alien that has sort of smaller 3.5 foot gray lackeys, but the real species, I think, is the kind of rough skin 4 to 4.5 foot gray. And it seems like this is the species that most abductees are encountering and are engaged with in producing hybrids. Is this, what do you think is going on in most cases of hybridization? Are these hybrids being created for use as slaves, or how did you put it before? What was the word that you used?
More parasitic,
More
perhaps.
parasitic. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, excellent question. It's super important to understand because there are different kinds of intentions behind that. And so, in my personal experience, being part of military experiments, which again, they're the most parasitic on our planet is the military, which operates under the Nuclear Biological Warfare Department, creating hybrids, creating clones as well. And so those have a very specific reason. And those are usually the most traumatic experiences. Most people that experience raping, abuse, sexual abuse, they are literally designed that way because when an organism is created under that kind of frequency, the product is very specific. The amount of DNA that's activated on that organism is very different. Okay, so that's a very specific agenda that is part of a kind of eugenics program as well here on our planet, which is why so much ritual practices were done as well. That's a whole nother conversation, but there is a kind of silent eugenics program on our planet currently that is trying to create these kinds of more parasitic and deactivated DNA in the bloodlines. However, once again, I do believe that there is harmonic order on the higher level. So I'm just speaking of one aspect of our reality here.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Another part of the hybridization program essentially are, let's say, the higher octave within this matrix again, is we're still talking about grays, and there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of different kinds of grays. I don't believe that this is
right. Hundreds of thousands of different grays.
There are so many different kinds of species. This universe is immense. Okay, so the kind of grays that I'm talking about are part of the Pleiadians, for example. Okay, the ones that I met are part of the Pleiadians. They have their own hybridization program. They're creating highly advanced hybrids. The hybrids that are met are incredibly advanced in ways that are beyond our humans. They would be savants, beyond savants here. So those are sometimes reinserted in the reincarnation cycle, and we do have them, which are savants and very special humans that are born here.
The souls are the actual bodies.
Yeah, excellent question. The soul. Okay, so the soul definitely is the essence of that information, but when it's created by that frequency, it's also put into a bloodline that is a resonance to the frequency of that soul. Okay, so the earth self-organizes. It's humans by frequency. So when a bloodline has a lot of activated DNA, we have a lot of psychics in that bloodline, very spiritual people, these kinds of souls are attached and attracted to these kinds of bloodlines because they're a vibrational match. Otherwise, we have things like miscarriages. We have, a lot of conflict. So there is no pregnancy that is random. There is no such thing as losing a child randomly by an accident. This is why every soul that is created is designed for that specific experience, even in an abortion. Because it's just the merging of two genetic bloodlines to create the soul essence, which is what this is about. So our humans that we create are also part of that hybridization program. Again, so families unite to create a child, and there's a reason for that. The opportunities that arise from that, always resonance frequencies. The children that are born, always a higher octave of all the previous generations of that bloodline. So again, if you were to look at this, every soul that is created, it's an opportunity to bring that bloodline into a higher octave. every generation. And that we had Dolores Cannon, for example, talked about waves of children, which is interesting because, I see the similar thing. There have been many generations of children that are born, each with different abilities, with activated, and each time more. Our children now, more of them are remembering their past lives. More of them are aware of universal truths and even other species and civilizations. And so that is a product of this hybridization program through the evolutionary system. The more parasitic systems of the government will try to get into bloodlines that are highly activated, because highly activated bloodlines are psychic, and those psychic abilities are utilized to create MK Ultra programs, to create these kinds of mind control systems, and even these programs where they take the astral, they hijack the high astral system of the human and make them experience a lot of things.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of parasitism in that as well that we have to be aware of. So, it's hard to talk about these topics as a very linear. It's really not just about the physical body and about creating a baby. We're talking about psychic, essentially, bloodlines that are very important.
Do you think there is programs where they're my-labbing people with psychic ability? I think you might have had some experience in this where I'm very curious as to whether this is a reality or not, that there's potentially millions of people all across the planet that on a regular basis are my-labbed psychics and utilize, for remote viewing or for even piloting craft, psychically piloting craft, psionically piloting craft. Do you think that this is a massive thing, that there's many people out there that are being taken without their knowing it and being used in special access programs?
Well, here's the thing. Right now, we're going through disclosure from the government, right? And so the reason why that's being pushed is because of the kind of technology that's going to be released pretty soon. Pretty soon, we're going to be seeing technology that we have never imagined possible for us. And the reason for that is what's behind that kind of disclosure is the preparation for that, which is the utilization of highly psychic people, because only highly psychic people can be utilized to navigate these kinds of advanced technologies. And these kinds of programs have been, have been in the works, honestly, since World War II. So these are things that I think once they realized, of course, they know that DNA is really the most important for the understanding of this psychic ability and advanced technologies. That's why a lot of these military families are the ones that are used in these MK Ultra programs the most. Most of these targeted families that I work with are all military. And 100% I can tell you that all of my experiencers that are having highly abusive contact experiences have military in their family. And that is a very strong marker across the board. That is a clear indication of the kind of experiences that they're having. And that's why I understand very clearly that not all contact is traumatic, and also not all contact is incredibly beautiful. And we have to be aware of that, and we have to understand what that means. But yes, to answer your question, absolutely. These MK Ultra programs and many kind of psychic manipulation programs exist, especially in the US, unfortunately. But even the inserting of contact experiences, psychic phenomena, they insert this into dream states of people for a lot of reasons, because the parasitism is not just happening in the physical body. It really mostly happens in the astral plane. And that's something that has been developed for a very long time. So that's why hypnotherapy does serve as a powerful tool to bypass some of that, because a lot of experiencers have a lot of screen images. They think that they're having, this is also done purposefully in order to create tremendous amount of confusion and fear of the unknown and of the interdimensional. If you can brainwash an entire human race to believe that their psychic abilities are a danger and that, you know, you're going to be in trouble and you're going to be abducted and you know, kidnapped by these beings, that's something that the military has inserted into our society and made us believe. That's not the truth. That's something that they are doing. So we also have to be able to see beyond the screen images that the military tries to insert chemically and also psychologically, using a lot of psychic implantation of memories and experiences.
Right. Yeah. That's why I think that you know, we have to utilize these tools. And you know, it seems that in general, the screen memories tend to break down when you go through those experiences under hypnotic regression. But I'm a little worried that we may be placing too much trust in what people are experiencing under hypnotic regression. We do know from the experiences of abductees on craft that these ET races, possibly the government as well, have the ability, these are what is termed the envisioning experiences. You know, there's the imaging experience where you're being shown stuff on screen, and then there's envisioning when psychically, I suppose, they're projecting imagery into your mind. They're not just imagery, you know, into your mind's eye, but you know, they can put you into a scenario. You know, they can put you into, like Whitley Strieber, you know, witnessed the death of his mother, which he didn't think was actually how it went down. You know, he had strong reason to suspect that, though as real as it was, it just didn't comport with his mother's memory of the event, although it, you know, it was a very real experience. And so they have that capability. And not a lot of people talk about this, but I've always been concerned that when we're in hypnotic regression, that could be being utilized. And long story short, I mean, there's a lot to unpack about this, but that could explain. I've always been confused as to why, say, David Jacobs, you know, who's regressed, you know, hundreds of people, has done thousands of regressions, has come up with an entirely different picture compared to, say, someone like Barbara Lamb, you know, who's, you know, regressed tons of people. And there's something strange about those, you know, just two diametrically opposed, you know, visions of the abduction phenomena. Like if you read David Jacobs' book and you just interpret, you know, logically, you know, all of the experiences, you know, that he's done, you come to that conclusion. But yet, if you know, look at the abductees of another researcher like Barbara Lamb, you arrive at a different conclusion. And what do you think about that? Do you think that there is, you know, given all of the deception and interference, you know, that there could be? I mean, let's face it. I mean, that's the main tool that is giving us all the information that is going into our models, you know, about the abduction scenario. You know, we're taking. I mean, there is a lot of conscious memory, but there is a lot of regression memory that we're putting into that model. And it seems like the technology and the capacity does exist to potentially, when someone's under regression, feed them, stream them an experience that's entirely not what they went through, or something that's deceptive or misleading in some kind of way. Do you worry that that's going on, and potentially on a large scale?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, extremely important question. And there's so many parts I want to focus on. But first of all, unfortunately, the ufology community and it's not, I don't believe that we need to understand where each researcher is coming from, the background, and what they're connected to. Because there's also have been inserted very specific agendas in the ufology community, very specific belief systems. Even the whole conversation of MK Ultra, the fact that we talk about it feeds into that system. I believe. I really try not to put too much focus on that, because it feeds into the fear of people. We subconsciously insert into the minds an idea that we are psychically weak and can be parasitized and taken at any time. And I don't like doing that at all, because
Yeah.
that's not really the truth. What is the truth is that we have absolute free will, and that we have to learn how to use that. But on the other side of that, in the UFO community itself, there's a lot of people from within the government that specifically want to put out very specific narratives, and that's something that we do need to discern, and that it's not easy to come to that awareness until you spend a lot of time in the community to really understand the difference.
I think there's clear indications that they want to seed into the community a negative ET narrative. I think that's palpable, but I wonder if it could be more complex than that. I wonder if they're seeding other narratives, if there's a love and light narrative that is out there that they are also responsible
Absolutely.
for.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
You got it. You got it. And that is another problem that we're going into right now in the spiritual community. And this is why I'm a very huge trying to promote that ET experiences are very personal. They are for our spiritual evolution. And when I say spiritual, I'm not saying just spiritual. This is like the integration of science and spirituality in order to create harmonic order in our lives as souls and into the future that we're headed. It's necessary for us to visit our own experiences and understand them deeply, because within that understanding is really the remembrance of our higher faculties, our power, and how we're leading our lives, why we are born in the families that we're born into, why we have certain repeated trauma patterns in our family. It's all very connected, very extremely important to understand that, because the same trauma that we repeat in our family is mirrored in the astral plane in the parasitic experiences that people are having, not only with the military, but also, interdimensionally. And that's something that we need to understand, the amount of weight that we have in the creation of our human experience. So aside from that, on the other side of this love and light, the idea that we become extremely identified with alien or ET contact and species as a form of identification, that is also, on the other end, another form of disinformation and manipulation, because people are turning it into another religion, in which, once again, we put all our power and our intuition and our attention to these other beings that are supposed to be highly advanced, away from ourself and our own power. That is another way of manipulating and disempowering humanity.
And it's our weak spot, give us something about identity because of this, deep-seated insecurity that we all have, give us something about identity, even something small, and we latch onto that and we never let go of it. And we form a running narrative throughout our whole lives about, our identity as this or that. And so our conscious experience is just filled, persists with just egoic thoughts all the time, about this identity that you have, and so it's very suspect.
Yes, absolutely. You got it right on the nail, right? So this is something that I really try to tell people not to get identified, because anytime that we become identified with anything, we become very fragile. Because that again, just like religion has taken over the world for so many centuries, we're going into another form of religion now. And so this is a disempowerment for the human, where we have to be very aware. And when it comes to getting information like channelings and things like that, I really don't feel that we need to receive the channelings of other people. I think we need to get our information and channel, because again, you are a portal to very specific information that is pertinent to you, to your development. And, we share that with people and things like that. But it's not to become, again, make that as truth. There are many multiple timelines that we're existing and we're co-creating simultaneously here. And the more we fall asleep into just going back into a comfort of what is known, we all become ignorant again. So it's almost like we have to keep waking up and keep relearning and realizing, where we are here, and keep evolving, never getting stuck on one idea of truth, essentially.
Right. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Well, we are over 2 hours here, and so I guess we'll wrap it up here. What's the most important thing that, as a final message, that you think everyone should know?
Yeah, thank you. So I think understanding what free will is, we absolutely have free will, and we create everything. We even create these experiences. And it comes really from our subconscious mind and our core belief system. So if we have victim mindset, we are going to create experiences that will reinforce victim mindset, both in the waking state and in the dream state. And that's something that all ancient civilizations have keep reminding us, with understanding how to master lucidity in both your waking state and dream state. When you become lucid in your dream state, you can also direct the kind of interactions that you're having. There's nothing that has more power over you, as much as it might seem that way. So this kind of self-mastery is something that is super important, and I highly invite you all to focus on the development of your intuition in order to develop a very strong discernment to be able to identify the inversion of natural order, harmonic order, and where we are being manipulated in many different ways. That's one of the key things that we need to understand. And what is at the root of that is first, the fear of the unknown, our inability to integrate our desires, and then the inability to master our emotions. The 3 ways that we become completely manipulated through the sexual body. Okay, so we don't understand what sexual energy, we didn't even get to that part of it, which is so important, but our primordial life force, our sexual energy, is one of the most important creative potentials. So
It's one and the same, right? Creative energy and sexual energy are the same thing, right? This is just dawning on me, and this is just the most wonderful thing. And if you preserve that, I think your capacity, right, to manifest becomes much more amplified. And no wonder we're such a sexualized society, and everybody's, drawn into that particular human activity because it's draining, our life force energy and capacity to manifest. But anyway, sorry, I don't want to.
100%.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we need to recognize our weaknesses. It's our ignorance of not understanding, and it's just that information has been suppressed very systematically and very specifically. And so I think now the invitation is to wake up consciousness to that, and to work on those limiting belief systems, to understand and take back the power. Taking back power is not just about, we're going to be empowered now. It's leading and directing the human race in a very specific direction, away from transhumanism, because I think right now we're at a very pinnacle point where we're headed in the direction of transhumanism. And we want to try to lead towards the direction of coming back into the activation of organic technology, which is beyond any kind of advanced, artificial technology that will be created. So that's where the humanity has to regain its trust in its own self.
And that's our salvation.
Yes.
We are incredible biotechnology ourselves, and it seems as that, we're, a year or two away from being, surpassed by artificial intelligence. We have to now, right now, I mean, this clearly has to be the moment then when we, collectively, or some critical mass of us activate our full potential in the face of this, worrisome advance of AI here.
Exactly. 100%. Yeah, thank you.
But Okay, yeah, I guess we'll end it here. Thank you so much, Geraldine. You're just so full of knowledge. We're going to have you back on for an additional podcast. 'Cause there's just actually 2 pages of questions that I just never got to ask.
I'm sorry. Yes, I would love to come back. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we will definitely arrange that. And thank you, everyone, for watching. And tune in every Monday at 8 p.m. EST for Paranormally Beyond Disclosure. And have a good night, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in with us tonight. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and follow to receive notifications when new content is made available. A Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure is looking to talk with ufologists, researchers, investigators, contactees, abductees, channelers, and more for upcoming shows. Or if you have stories, photos, videos, questions, suggestions, or comments, please contact us through Messenger or email us at paranomalypodcast@gmail.com. And you can also visit us at paranomalypodcast.com for more content and information, including all our social links. I thank you again for watching or listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode of Paranomaly Beyond Disclosure.